I think the concept of 1M65 is a motivational thing. It's meant to motivate, it's meant to push people and say that you can achieve it, not just a woo-woo number that is unachievable.
Hello and welcome to Chill with TFC. My name is Andrew, and on this show, we look for the geekiest and quirkiest minds to find out what they think about money and life. If you have been consuming financial content like TFC podcast for some time, then you would have heard of Mr. Loo Cheng Chuan, founder of the 1M65 movement. Now, when I see him, I automatically call him Mr. Loo, like many other people. It's like a form of respect to him because he has been sharing in this space for a long time, not just about CPF, but also about investing, about properties, and about finances. Do you know that apart from 1M65, there's also 4M65, 1M45, and all these different goals under Mr. Loo's CPF movement? If you like CPF content, this episode is for you. Also, stay tuned all the way to the end for our TFC personal money questions if you want to know what Mr. Loo's best and worst investments are.
And you love to travel too, it seems like you do travel and eat, because the last time we spoke, you came back from Europe, and today you just, where do you come back from again?
I came out of Europe again.
Okay.
And next I'm going to travel to Korea. I don't travel for travel sake. I travel for work sake. So for business. So me and my wife runs a e-commerce business that deals with fashion. So we have to travel quite a lot to keep up with the fashions of the day. So we spend most of my time overseas. And as a result, I have traveled a lot, yeah.
Yeah, because other people might be looking at you, Mr. Loo, and thinking, that's a lifestyle I want. What's the meaning of 1M65 if I don't get to relax, retire, and, we say about FIRE, financial independence, retire early, traveling around the world?
When I was the age, I look at my bosses and they were high in their SIA class, PPS and things like that. And they travel a lot, and I wish so much that I could be like them. So I worked very, very hard in my life to be like them. And only to find out when I become like them, it is really, really something that I realized that I don't really want. You become a frequent flyer simply because you fly like a bird. When you fly too much of a good thing become a bad thing. Anything. So the only thing I really wish is just to have a good, steady life, frankly speaking, in Singapore. Enjoy my wonderful daily routine.
Yep. And even though you've achieved way more than the 1M65 goal, right? You're still running your business and you're still actively investing. So what got you interested to share about this concept of 1M65? And I do have to point out that, right at the beginning, when you first started out talking about 1M65, some people might have the concept that, okay, one person must have $1 million in my CPF. But actually, it is a couple, right, when you started out?
Actually, a number is just a number. Some people 100,000 is enough. Some people $500,000 is enough. Some people 10 million is not enough. For some people, ordinary people realize with $10 million, wow, it's like more than enough, right? So a number is a number, is respect to who you talk to and things like that. For some people who are struggling with even, meeting basics of life, having 100,000 or 200,000 their CPF is a hell of money. A lot of people that I talk to, they say, oh, with inflation, with this, with that, 1 million not enough. I'm still your concept lousy and things like that. So I think why I designed the tagline 1M65, I didn't put 1M65 for 2. I didn't say 1M65 for 1. I think the concept of 1M65 is a motivational thing. It's meant to motivate. It's meant to push people and say that you can achieve it, not just a woo-woo number that is unachievable. Now, I want to lower the bar from the start so that people know that it is achievable. It is achievable. I started off by saying, okay, let's start with a couple. That's a lot easier. At retirement, each of them have $500,000. I think that's more achievable. Then I think that kind of lost the kick, because when I started the movement, a lot of people criticize that this is hot air, unachievable whatsoever. Then, of course, I kind of show that, hey, I don't say 1M65, I started 1M45. So me and my wife hit 1M at 45. Now I'm 50, right? Then you won't believe it now. People start competing to reach there. So in my 1M65 Telegram group, I have 28,000 people there. there's a competition right now. I didn't start it, There are actually people posting up to Hao Lian to show off their CPF statement. And there are a hell lot of 1 million right now. I mean, a hell lot doesn't mean in the thousands or 10,000, but it's a lot now. In fact, they start compiling they call a CPF tree of different people achieving it. Then I got to push a bar to motivate more people who have already done that, right? So therefore, I kind of push the envelope and just say, why don't we push it to 1M by 50 or something like that, right? So I hit 1M48. I call it 1M48A. Nowadays, nobody criticized me for having this concept that is a couple thing, because now we are pushing people towards, so I've done 1M48 alone. So I'm now 49. In a few weeks' time, I'm 50. So last year, for the I hit 1M. Then I'm trying to push the bar higher and higher. Then I came up with a concept of 4M65. And then eventually I kind of rest the concept at 10M65. So whatever number it's a number between, it's a continuum, right? You pick a number you're comfortable with and aspire to move towards that.
So originally 1M65 is meant to be a stretch goal, yet something achievable. And you could start off as a couple earning 1M65 together. But of course, like I said, a number is a number. So our listeners, they would have come across different variations of these, right? You mentioned 1M45, 4M65, and even 10M65. But no matter what number it is up to you to decide what that number is.
So I think whether is it a 1M65 as a couple, 1M65 alone, 1M45, 1M50, 4M65, 10M65. I've got all these different formulas for this all mapped out already. Basically, pick one that you feel that is a stretch, but is achievable. Okay? Most of the other financial wealth accumulation strategies that I would say that people, financial bloggers or kind of a coach and all this, they taught carry a substantial amount of risk. Okay, whether is it through property, through Bitcoin, through e-commerce or commercial property, or through stock market or whatever options and all this, they carry a substantial amount of risk and substantial amount of resources that you need, or a substantial amount of education that's needed. What I shared really is something very simple that the man in the street, don't need a hell lot of education, can easily understand, and it's a lot more easier to achieve. I didn't say it's easy to achieve, I say it's easier to achieve, and a lot more certainty. So I think the bar really is set by yourself, and also the path that you choose, it's a lot easier and more certain. So I think that's where the appeal is, and that's probably my gain to fame is, I'm essentially an ordinary Singaporean with an extraordinary strategy.
And you're talking about the risk-free, and you're referring to CPF interest rate being relatively stable, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And different people have different financial background and are in different financial situations. So what you're saying is that they just have to pick the number that is a stretch for them, yet is achievable. And like you mentioned, I'm sure there are criticisms from both sides. Like some saying like 1M is impossible, and some people are like 1M, where got enough? Inflation and all that. So what other criticisms have you received back then when you first started this movement? And how has it changed? Like, are people's opinions about 1M65 very different right now compared to last time?
I think it's absolutely memorable to look back in those days. I started the movement about 2015 or so, and I coined it 1M65. I was then referred to as Mr. CPF in a negative way. So people then look at CPF as a, give CPF names, and I got dragged onto it, right? So because CPF, CPF Jalui, CPF Ponzi scheme, government Jalui, that kind of thing, right? It's like really bad name. So when I started preaching this concept, I got dragged down into it. So I also called Mr. CPF. It's like, 政府的走狗, running dog of the government, running dog of CPF. CPF must have paid a lot of money to do this and kind of thing. By the way, up to today, I've not collected 1 cent. Don't say from CPF. I've not collected 1 cent from anyone for sharing this concept. No organization,
I don't think they can pay you. I mean, officially. Yeah.
So
unofficially also lah.
So really, this is a non-profit kind of movement in a sense, But in early days, really the distrust and the misconception and the misinformation about the CPF was so high that I think 80 to 90% of the comments were negative. But we persisted. We started a movement. The great thing about movement is that can one man change the world? Maybe not the world, but can one man change majority of a perception? I'm surprised that it did. From one person, I started giving a lot of talks. Through now, I think I've done 200 over talks. Okay, from then till now, 200 over talks. I've written many articles on it. I've given a lot of interviews like this. And once I do that, let's say in an average talk like this, 5 or 10% get convinced. And out of the 5 or 10% get convinced, half of that just go on to become evangelists for this concept. It multiplies, it's really like power compounding. It multiplies in terms of the reach. So the number speaks for itself that ever since we started the movement a few years ago, strangely every year, now the CPF number, the number of withdrawals is less than the number of top-ups. So the CPF balance, the CPF keep increasing. Singaporeans have now changed their concept that actually CPF really is a good thing. It's a wealth creating thing, and people are rushing to top up. Nowadays, nobody goes to Hong Lim Park and Khao Pei, return my CPF. I bet you if those people go now, they'll be thrown rocks and stones by the other people. So it is now a accepted wisdom, mainstream knowledge right now that really 1M65 and above are very achievable. It's life-changing and transforming. So I think it has been a long journey. We crossed the tipping point. Now it's a concept that people kind of accept. So times really have changed in a very big way.
People's perceptions have really shifted, and there are, of course, YouTubers, personalities, influencers also talking about your CPF as a relatively risk-free way to grow your wealth. So let's take the logical aspects of it, right? If you were to take the counterpoint of view, play devil's advocate to the CPF movement, right? Let's say 1M45, like you shouldn't do that. Like, why shouldn't you aim to top up your CPF as soon as possible?
So the common critics are I can get higher return through the stock market, and then the government may change a goalpost, the government may change a policy, or maybe the people can change the government, and the root government comes in and spend on CPF. And so on. So these are the common thing. And the other one is you use all your CPF. Where's your housing aspiration? You stay in HDB very low class. You should aspire to upgrade private property, landed property. Stay in low class HDB for it. That kind of thing. Right? So these are the common criticism that I get. To them, I will just say that there are many roads that leads to Rome. And mind you, I spend a lot of time in Rome. Really, there's many roads that leads to Rome. I picked one that is that I think is one of the safest, most confident of reaching. And if you have any other method that you think you can go and reach Rome, go ahead. Go ahead. Nothing stopping you. But to the mass appeal, to the young people in Singapore, I want to educate them of this possibility. To the uncle and aunties who have missed out on this opportunity, I want them to able to look back and said, why didn't I? I want to make sure now my son and my grandchildren knows about this, so that they are now well educated of this concept. It's for them to then decide. Yeah. So all the other concepts either carry some risks of all forms of welfare. Just relatively speaking, less risk, much less risk. Okay. More certainty. Okay. The only one or two main criticism is that it's not sexy enough. Too slow. Why it take 30 years to become a millionaire? I can be a millionaire in 3 years. That kind of thing. Go ahead. Go ahead. I think I embrace and accept some of this criticism. And I'll just say that, chicken rice is not for everybody. Roti prata is not for everybody. Croissant is not for everybody. So is 165 is not for everybody. But I choose to give you something that is very easy to digest, easy to afford, and then you decide what is the best for you.
How about liquidity? The liquidity argument, having the cash in your hand versus CPF, you lock it up.
From the start, the 1M65 concept was never using your cash. It's always using your ordinary account to transfer the SA. What could you have done with your ordinary account? You can use to buy a house, maybe invest in some other investment, which you cannot touch anyway. So it's one big thing that you potentially forsake is a bigger house, be it a private condominium or a landed property. It's really up to the individual. I stay in the HDB. It's very comfortable for me. I don't feel any low class. In fact, around my vicinity now, I drive a simple car. I've seen a few Ferrari and Porsche around my HDB area. So I see that even people, potentially richer or as rich as I am, I think I don't feel any lower standard or whatsoever. So some people do. Really not a loss of liquidity at all. Yeah. Now, some people say, no, I want to use cash to top it up. Now, I've never encouraged that. There's an option now for people to do that. I don't really encourage it because I think cash has a lot of usage, okay? I've done it before when I was young. I've only done once or twice. I didn't really top up that much. So really, there's really no loss of liquidity except a loss of an opportunity to upgrade to a big mega house, which really is up to the individual whether you cherish that or not.
Yeah, so one of the concepts, of course, like you said, moving from OA to SA, people in the finance community will be very familiar with that because they always think about how to grow their wealth, right? So there are two things. One is, well, then you kind of need to be fully employed in a stable job, whereas there's a lot more gig work, freelancers nowadays. So what do you think about that? I still have to use cash to top up, right, if I'm a freelancer?
I would just say this for the freelancers, Grab drivers, taxi drivers, anybody who don't have a salaried job, okay? That as far as possible, please top up your CPF as young as possible. That really it's basically high interest, basically social security. You pay for safety of a retirement. This is what I call a financial safety net. It's very, very important. Now, once you've achieved maybe even your FRS or your 1M65 as a foundation is done, then you can use your cash for something else. But I strongly encourage everybody not to underestimate the compounding power of the CPF. The fact that it's restricted for use is actually an advantage. Shouldn't be seen as a disadvantage. I've got this concept which I wanted to share with everybody, is that I have a relative, they're very old right now. When the husband was very young, womanizer, spent a lot of money, and what the wife was, of course, very disappointed with the family. All the money that she earned, the husband would try to kind of take it away and spend it in sinful ways and things like that. What the wife did, in order to protect her wealth, is to dump whatever she can to CPF. And the husband cannot touch. There's no way can touch, right? But she dumped so fast. I mean, she wasn't educated those days. Now I think she's in her 80s right now. She wasn't educated properly when young, but she didn't realize the compounding power of the act of this. So at retirement in their 60s or 70s, of course, when you reach 60s, 70s, no woman want you anymore. So the husband became poor, helpless, full of disease and illnesses, and then all the mistresses are gone and things like that. He's totally broke. Suddenly realized that the wife is so rich and so powerful because you have money, right? So powerful. The wife have a strong say right now because the compounding power of CPF became so high. So now the husband totally depend on the wife for a living. So sometimes, a lot of times, I've seen stories of this, having access to the cash is actually a bad thing. You'll be hand itchy to go and touch it and go and throw into some stupid investment or whatsoever, or spend some way and things like that, and lost it all. So really, the loss of liquidity is a double-edged sword. You got to see whether is it for you or against you.
That actually leads into my next question, because like you mentioned, the power of compounding is better if you do it from a very young age. But what if someone is in their 30s, 40s, or even 50s, right? And they want to start on their 1M65 journey. They realize the importance of it, but they feel that, okay, is it too late for me right now? Do you have any advice for them?
If you're in your 30s and 40s, I think it's still okay. It's still okay. You may not be able to hit stretch targets of 1M45 or 1M50 or whatever. But I think it's still within reach. Even if you cannot hit 1M, even half a M is still a lot of money. 750,000 is still a lot of money. It doesn't really matter. So it's better to have more money. So it's a concept of more, not a concept of I can't hit 1M. But what about those who are in their 50s and 60s and 70s, right? Those, I would say, a bit late because the power of compounding is clearly not in their favor because time is a very important factor. That's where it comes in that they must educate their next generation, not to have missed the boat again like them. So our mistakes can benefit the next generation as well. So my father, for example, at 55, so took out all his CPF, missed the boat totally. But I would just say that the mistake ends at his generation. The next few generations downwards, they will all not make this mistake again.
Because we keep talking about different people in different financial situations. Like you yourself, you crossed 1 million alone at 49 years old, before 50 years old, right? In your CPF. And of course, apart from your CPF, you do investing and you do so many other things. And I'm really interested in this concept that you talked about, which is the kueh lapis. Could you explain that?
I'm actually very Singlish. In your podcast, I toned down quite a lot of that.
Go for it. We love Singlish. Can on.
Yeah, I'm toning it down. Yesterday, I did an overdose of it in an audience where there's a lot of angmos and things like that. I was like, couldn't give a damn about it. But anyway, but kueh lapis is very local, a hyper local concept, meaning that everybody knows what a kueh lapis is, right? I love the kueh lapis, but especially by the Bengawan Solo one. But the kueh lapis essentially describe that we should have layers and layers of investments, okay? And at the bottom layer, it stands the most important pillar. It's what I call a bao jiak investment structure, which is our CPF. That's where your
Sure
165, bao jiak, sure win, sure eat. Yeah, so that layer is very important. You top up an SA, top up an MA, and let it compound and leave it there and don't touch it up to 65, 70 years old. Just let it keep on compounding. And whatever storm hits, whatever crisis that you might face, unless you die, sub-Saharan financial crisis, the 1997, 2001 Asia financial crisis and Great Recession, or whatever hit, that thing still compounds. So that's the first layer. Then the second layer, a lot of people say, okay, after that, what do I do? Right? I think that may be a question I anticipate from you. That's where I encourage people, okay, now you really achieve, right? Take a bit more risk. Now, then people say, I want to invest in equities or invest in stocks and whatever. So how do I do it? After looking at so many people who have lost so much money, I just tell them the safest way is what Warren Buffett encouraged everybody. Just buy the S&P 500 and leave it there and let it compound. You can dollar cost average, you can buy on a dip. It doesn't matter, whatever. Just keep buying and hold it there and let it compound. Now, some people have done that. You say, no, Mr. Loo, no, what if I want some more? It's like, okay, if you've got the money, got the guts or whatever, go some more. Take on the NASDAQ. A hell lot more fluctuation, but the growth is higher. Right? Then on top of that, then you layer some more. So then that's where the rest of the people say, I want to do a bit of Bitcoin, I'll do a bit of property, I'll do a bit of business, whatever. It's up there. For me, I touch on maybe a bit of algo trading. I don't believe in Bitcoin. I cannot understand it. It's fine. Young people can. I can't. Anchor me. It's okay. I missed that, and I am happy to miss that. I touch a bit of algo trading. I do angel investing. I have businesses myself and things like that. So that's where it stacks up. The sequence is important, not just the layers. The sequence is important, that you do the bottom layer first before you go on top. Because if your bottom layers are not built and you jump straight to the top, you can be decimated. And this COVID recently this year, when the Fed increased interest rate and crashed the entire stock market, has taught everybody that you can die. You can die from stock market, So therefore, those bottom layers must come and they stabilize your investment mood and emotions, so that you have the confidence to go for higher one. And this time around, when the storm come, one or two of my layers were decimated. I live on pretty well. I never have a 1 minute loss of sleep, never have lost appetite. Still living happily and still traveling as much as I can and things like that. So that's why I say this layer is important. Now, some people say, but look, Mr. Loo, like that very slow. I want to be a millionaire by 28 years old. I want to be a billionaire like Elon Musk by 40 years old. That kind of thing. Good for you. Again, my financial concepts are shared for the mass majority. If you have any aspiration that's higher than that, go ahead. Yeah, just go ahead. When you lose money, then you can come and look for me.
So building up the layers step by step, one by one. And you mentioned that one or two of your layers are decimated. In your words, I will say, jiba boom, right?
Yep.
Is it the equities?
Oh, I did some leverage investments. They lost quite a lot this round.
You yourself, you say like, okay, you might have missed the crypto boat. That's fine. That's fine for you. But for others listening in, they might not know algo trading. They might not know how to do leverage investment. So like everybody got to build their own layers, right?
I almost never talk about those higher layers. I don't share the details whatsoever because they are so risky. I don't want people to say, oh, Mr. Loo also do that, therefore I can do that. That's where the big chunky layers bottom are very, very important, And I'm sure quite a lot of the men in the streets or investors in the streets don't even have those. And the minute they see those returns are very, very high, it can be 20, 30%, a year, but can decimate in a crisis as well. They can see returns, they cannot see the volatility, right? So it's just like Bitcoin, Luna, totally jibaboom, right? exploded and died. And is it UST or USDT? UST died also, right? Just basically shows how ignorant I am with the crypto world right now. But
it goes to zero.
It goes to zero. Can go. There are stocks that can go to zero. I think there's a lot of stocks that go into zero as well in the Singapore stock market as well. So I would just say that that's where foundations are important. We got to invest in those foundations just before we touch those on top. Stock picking is, in my definition, on the high layer. You want to do stock picking, make sure your bottom layers are done first. Most of the people will not agree with me and will not listen to me anyway. But it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. When you lose money, then you come and cry and look for me.
Well, even those who believe in Warren Buffett, right, they still want to do some level of stock picking to scratch the itch or whatever. But of course, it depends on how much percentage of your portfolio are you allocating to that stock picking so that you at least scratch the itch but don't lose it all.
But unfortunately, that's not the case in practice. I get weekly or even weekly or daily emails telling me how bad they've done through stock picking, why is like that. They say that, Warren Buffett also did stock picking, value investment taught by Graham and all this kind of thing. So I asked them, are you Warren Buffett? Are you Graham? Even I don't do stock picking, I do very little of it. It's something very difficult to do. Bottom line, very, very difficult to do. It's not just the knowledge, then the emotional strength that you have, plus timing, 天时地利人和 freaking luck and all this. I think bulk of 99%, maybe 99.9% of people wouldn't know how to do that well. I have a good friend. His name is Sam Ree. He's the chief investment officer of Endowers. He used to be CEO of Morgan Stanley. He do this kind of thing for a living. Kung Fu must be one of the highest, if not the highest in the league whatsoever. Even he agreed that he can't do it. Now, when he was in Morgan Stanley, his job is that. So he had more time, he has more machines, he has more systems, and that they help him do that. But now, in his busy life, he can't do it. So if people like him also cannot do it, people like me cannot do it, what makes you think that you guys can do it? Yeah. So that's why I encourage people, don't try to do stock picking. Stock picking has what I call lethality risk, can go to zero. When you have things like S&P 500, NASDAQ, whatever, it's very unlikely to go zero. Zero requires the whole world to collapse. You require all the 500 stocks in S&P 500 to collapse. That's very, very unlikely. But lethality risk through stock picking can go to zero. Yes.
So let's dig a bit into that, because you mentioned S&P 500, and if you want to take it one step up, the NASDAQ, and you actually place that on the layer above the CPF layer, right? So investing in the broad markets. Well, that is on the assumption that, of course, the US has been doing well, but that's looking at past data, and we know we are in a very weird situation right now. Do you think that's a safe assumption to bet on the US? Or some people are looking at global, right? The world index and all that. So how do you see this as the second layer above CPF?
First of all, the S&P 500 consists of the top 500 companies in the US stock market. But these companies are global, companies. You have got Facebook. I don't think they are US only company. You have got Amazon, McDonald's. You have got, I don't know which other company is that. But basically a hell lot of all these companies. I would say that quite a lot of their business is in US, but they're not US centric alone. It's I don't know. I'll just pick a number from there. Maybe 50-60% of their business in US. And then the rest of the world, constitute the rest of it. So really, while they seems like US names, it's a US S&P 500 fixed company from the US stock market, but these are not US centric or US only businesses. So it's really a globally diversified index. That's what I'm looking at. You can substitute that with MSCI World Index and whatever. I think it will still perform reasonably similar. So from that perspective, I don't think we need to discuss this topic, whether US will be the leader forever, whether US dollar, this discussion is not relevant to the concept of passive investment using the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ. But let me just talk a bit of the US stock market, okay? I think if you have been to US, I've stayed in US for a long period of time. US has this amazing ability to attract the best talent of the world. So if you go to Silicon Valley, look at the startup, very few of them are Angmos. I mean, US Angmos, Yeah, there are people from China, people from Israel, people from Middle East, people from Africa, people from whatever, Russia, all this. They all conglomerate the best of the best people goes to USA. Simply because USA, through culturally, is really a land for the smart and able to flourish. I don't think it's anywhere equal to that. So the US really has some power to attract the best of the best. And just take this the current crisis that we are facing right now. Who's going to be the best winner? You think about it, right? So this is US, and they print away out the financial crisis and exported the inflation rest of the world.
Yes.
Karma, that kind of thing, right? But yeah. So all of us suffered because they printed their way, and they suffered as well. But all of us got to maitan for them, got to
global reserve currency.
Yeah, but all of us so powerful. I do something bad. All of you all got to pay for my folly, Then here is Russia and Ukraine fighting. Ukraine, of course, suffered quite a bit. But Russia suffered a hell lot, a hell lot. They lost 80,000 troops, either wounded or dead. Their economy is being hit so badly. The economy, I don't know what's the exact number. Maybe this war was set them back 10 years back economically and politically and in chaos. Now even their pro-Kremlin supporters are now even criticizing Kremlin. So so US went down. The entire Europe, because they are blackmailed by Russia, the entire cost of living went up because of the energy crisis. Plus, of course, US exported inflation to them, has went down tremendously. Let me tell you how bad it is. An average household, you don't think the angmo in Europe earns a lot. Let's say in Italy or in France, I think the average income is 1,005 euro. This is very little by Singapore standard. And the heating in winter easily takes up 1,000 euros. So if you sell you 1,000 euros and the heating takes up 1,000, you're left with $500, 500 euros. It's very little, right? Europe meaning France, Germany, UK, all this, Scandinavian are all gone. Yeah. And China, of course, because of a zero COVID policy, because of drought, because of whatever street reason, it also went down. Can you see who is the ultimate winner out of this entire crisis? It's US. How smart they are. I'm not talking about how morally right they are, but because of this, they are the biggest survivor the winner of this whole thing. So therefore, to bet against the US is a very, very dangerous thing. It's a very, very dangerous thing. So I wouldn't take that. Warren Buffett actually said that don't bet against US. Last 100 years, anyone who bet against US really suffered. I think that will go on for another 50, 100 years. I don't know. Okay, but definitely not now.
Whatever talk about the changing world order, Mr. Loo doesn't buy it.
The evidence is clear until you cannot clear right now. Yeah, that the US is going to emerge the winner of this entire thing.
And y'all can debate Mr. Loo on it because he's used to, being. I mean, since your CPF early days, right? People give you names, throw shit at you. So I just want to ask you this question to close off. What has been your most controversial view to date? A lot.
Controversial. I think. Well, I have quite a few controversial views. I think the most controversial one is using. You see, what is controversial? What is controversial then is not controversial now.
Depends on the time. Yeah,
of course, right? So those days, if you tell the world that the world is round, it's very controversial. And those days, come up with a concept that the CPF can make you millionaire. It's extremely controversial, right? So I think the biggest controversy really I ever faced was pushing the use of CPF as a get-rich tool. Use my word carefully. Get-rich tool, right? Leveraging on CPF as a get-rich tool is very controversial. Now, most people will accept that CPF is a safety net. It's get comfortable. But to say that you can use a CPF to become rich, of course, rich is a controversial term itself. Some people consider 100,000 rich, some people consider 500,000 rich, 1 million rich, but rich, by my standard, a few $1 million is rich. I think to use the CPF as a get-rich tool, as an alternative to all the other concepts, I think that's very controversial. Okay, that's very controversial. And it's probably still controversial to some extent today. Less controversial, but it's still controversial. So I strongly encourage, this debate to continue. I came to realize that the more controversial something is, the more the news spreads. And because the more the news spreads, the more people will become rich. I have this internal goal. I have an internal goal that I cannot measure easily. Is that I hope 1 million people will become millionaires. I cannot set a date to it because it's very difficult to measure. But I hope that in my lifetime, I will be able to see a million people become millionaires. And I want to use this endeavor as an instrument to make that happen. And it makes me happy.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Loo. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Can all spend time with Chong Chong, your munchkin, and your family.
Thank you. Thanks for this interview.
Stay tuned all the way after this quick note for our personal money question segment. Before that, I hope you've learned something useful today. Join our Telegram group, follow us on our socials, and check out thefinancialcoconut.com.
And the first one is, what is your best and worst investment? It doesn't have to be a financial one.
That's a great question. And let me surprise you with my best investment. This is my best investment. Yeah, it's a munchkin. He came over as a kitten. It's a munchkin. Very playful, and his name is Chong Chong. So this is the best investment so far. Lighten up my mood, makes me happy. Okay, very playful. Makes you feel like I have a new kid. Yeah, so that's my best investment. All right, okay. Best investment, you gotta go.
Yeah,
Okay.
I heard Chong Chong.
My worst investment, I wouldn't use the word investment. My worst expenditure of my life is probably I actually have a motorcycle license, class 2B. But the funny thing is that it took me a phenomenal effort to get the license, many practices and 6 tests, because that means I failed 5 times. And then I passed it eventually. And I've never rode once on the road. Never. Because after the sixth time I passed, I was so happy. My girlfriend, who is now my wife, insisted that, if you ever ride on the road, she will turn me into a eunuch. So, never had a chance to ride on the road. Yeah.
Why do you want to learn how to ride? Is it you want to be Andy Lau?
When you're 20 years old, you're warm-blooded. You just want to do cool things like 20-year-old do and things like that. But yeah, that's a total waste of money. Yeah, total waste of money and a lot of time wasted. Totally wasted. Yeah, it's a really worst investment. It's stupid. Money is of course valuable, but the time that was spent cannot be returned. Yeah, money probably can be returned, but time cannot be returned. Okay.
My next question will be the reverse of that, because I want to ask you a place that you learn from that you think is underrated. It could be a book, a website, a podcast. We're looking for a recommendation from you.
Actually, not so much the place, but the condition that I learned from is highly underrated. Is that I walk a lot every day. Part of my exercise. At my age, I can't run too much. I can't do strenuous exercise, but I walk a lot. And while walking, I listen to a lot of YouTube videos. Let me tell you how much I walk. I walk roughly about 12 kilometers a day. So in that period, I listen to 2 over hours of YouTube video a day, getting the latest updates and things like that. So not just you learn a lot from YouTube, but the condition that I learned the YouTube from is that when I do it while walking. Yeah, so it is it's very underrated that that exercise is a waste of time, or exercise uses a lot of time. I have no waste of my time. My time was completely used for education while exercising. So it's very underrated that exercise can be used for financial literacy as well.